Hi, I'm Philip Marsh. I'd like to talk to you about the knowledge asset we call the intentional storytelling model. We developed this tool a few years ago specifically to assist very senior people in organizations such as managers, subject matter experts, technical experts and mentors in transferring critical knowledge, experience and behaviors across to less experienced staff and mentees. Now remember, the critical success factor in effective storytelling is to ensure that you structure the information in such a way that it is packaged in short, succinct modules in order to get the central message across to the audience in a powerful mechanism which keeps their concentration span maximized and allows for long-term memory recall. Step number one of intentional storytelling is to have a powerful central message. The central message will ensure that the audience understand right up front as to what they're going to get out of the story. It also assists the storyteller in keeping focused and not going onto side issues and getting sidetracked. Once we've successfully established the central message, what we need to then do is ensure that we cater for the various different learning styles. This means that your audience may contain people that are highly auditory in terms of their learning style. This means they will respond well to just listening to you. But you may also have people who are highly visual in terms of their learning style, which means it would be a good idea to have some pictures or icons or images and some color and some more visual stimulation that will assist those with the visual learning style. But it may also be important to cater for the kinesthetic and sensual learning style people. This may involve putting in some experiential video or having some props that they can touch and feel and actually engage in the learning process. By the storyteller including an opportunity for all learning styles to participate, he or she can ensure the maximum transfer of learning. The third step in intentional storytelling is to ensure that we have a logical structure. The logical structure ensures that the storyteller pre-plans the flow of the information and that understands how the audience will get the information. So this may involve a short, high-impact, highly stimulating entry or opening, and this may just be a few seconds, and it should also end with a very powerful closure and the key lessons learned. And this will then give the storyteller an indication of how much time they have got for the body of the story. And in our experience, the entire story from start to end should be somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes and no longer. In intentional storytelling is to use an old technique that psychologists have known for many years, which is the use of metaphors and analogies. These are preconditioned experiences and associations that the brain has made. So for instance, raining cats and dogs is something that we've grown up with as a visualization. So if possible, during the course of the story, try to use as many metaphors and analogies as possible, which will assist the brain with embedding the knowledge for long-term memory recall. Now the fifth step in intentional storytelling is to ensure that you are connected to the listeners. This is a fairly simple approach, and what the storyteller should do from time to time is pause in the middle of their story and simply ask one or two of the listeners whether they've had a similar experience or if they can relate to the story or if they have any input to add. This ensures that there is a connection to the audience. The important part of storytelling is for the storyteller to have absolute authenticity, and he or she can do this and gain a high degree of credibility by talking from personal experience. Personal experience allows the storyteller to talk with a high degree of passion and involvement around the experience. And this brings us up to the next point, which is just as important, the emotional impact. Our brains tend to store long-term memories in our limbic system, or the seat of our emotional brain. And so it's very important that we don't try and rush through rational statistics and facts. The storyteller, by talking from personal experience, can bring in a high degree of emotional impact, which will then provide a lasting memory for the listeners. At this stage of the story, the storyteller should be trying to ascertain whether he or she is having an impact with the audience. The best way to do this is to test if you are in fact having any influence on the audience at all through your story. And the way we should do this is to simply ask questions. Identify one or two people in the audience and just ask them a question as to what they will do next. Have they got something out of the story? where they like to add something to the story and to see what they could do differently as from Monday morning as a result of the knowledge gained from this story. Now that the storyteller has started to test whether he or she is in fact influencing the listeners, it's time to lead to some form of action. And this is where the storyteller singles out one or two people in the audience or opens up the floor for conversation and asks simple questions such as, what would we do differently on Monday as a result of the story? What behaviors or practices or processes should we change as a result of the story, etc. And this ensures that the story has in fact landed well and will lead to changes in activity. Before we finish the intentional storytelling tool, there's a useful intermediary step which we call the relative value concept. And this is to ensure that the listeners have actually grasped all the implications of the story. This may include financial implications, this may include reputational damage to the organization, staff morale, and it may not be purely the central message that has been given. And this is essentially to ensure that the scope of the story is as wide as it needs to be to embed the long-term memory with the listeners. Now we get to the final step in intentional storytelling. And this is the essential element where we've tested that the story has landed well with the audience and they're going to take out from it the key lessons learned. The best way for the storyteller to do this is to not try and summarize the lessons him or herself. What you should do is ask the audience to contribute the lessons that they have got out of the story, essentially no more than 3 to 5, and jot these down on a flip chart. This will ensure that the story has been told effectively and the listeners will move away and take the value out of your experience. And so to summarize, once again, it starts with an essential core central message without too many side issues. It moves then into looking at the learning styles of the audience and making sure that there's auditory support, there's some graphical support, and if possible, some kinesthetic, real learning support as well, such as tools or videos. We're then looking for a logical story structure, a short 20-second to 30-second introduction, possibly a 1-minute lessons learned as a closeout, and 7 to 8 minutes for the core of the story and the body of the knowledge asset. Remember to always include as many metaphors and analogies as you can, as these are pre-associations in the mind which the listeners can take and embed with the events. Connection to listeners, very important. Test that you are keeping connected with the listener. Always try and talk from personal experience because it will allow you to bring in the emotional impact, the essential ingredient for embedding long-term memories. Test that you are influencing thinking and that your story will lead to action. Make sure that your audience will walk away doing things differently in future. Possibly you could consider looking at the relative value concept and bringing in other areas such as financial or human or reputational risk. And then finally, and very succinctly, summarize the key lessons learned out of your story. And if you follow this process and prepare your knowledge transfer in such a way, I can assure you, you will have very successful knowledge sharing events. Thank you.